What is up, Flash fans? My name is Tommy from ZD Comics, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 5, Plastique. So I'm going to start off my non-spoiler review, and of course I will get into the spoilers later on, but I will give you a warning, don't worry. So this episode, like always, was absolutely fantastic, I gotta say. I think it was actually my favorite. Probably the pilot was my favorite. This is probably my second favorite. And this episode revolves around Plastique, whose real name is Betty Susie. Now, Betty Susie works for the government, and the big plot here is General Eiling. Now, General Eiling actually ends up becoming this superhuman, like, beast form. He kind of looks like Solomon Grundy, but not as big and not that zombie look. He basically ends up becoming this huge monster with superhuman strength, superhuman ability, and, you know, pretty much every general thing. Sort of like Superman without the heat vision and the flying. So he did not become that in this episode, but eventually he will become that. He doesn't have any, like, you know, name. Usually they'll call him the General, but that's pretty much it. He doesn't have, like, a superhero name or anything, and he is an enemy. He is not a superhero, he's more of a supervillain. Now, the big focus is on Betty Susie. Now, Betty Susie was affected by the, explosion, the Star Labs explosion, and she was given the power of basically explosion. So, why she was, working with these bombs, that's when the explosion went off, so basically, anything she touches will explode. Now, that's sort of a problem because she's like, oh no, I can't have human contact, but of course they end up making these gloves that when she touches someone, it's pretty much safe. Now, I don't want to get too much into the spoilers, but the dynamic between General Eiling and Betty Susie is alright, but the big dynamic is basically how the group, the Flash group, takes in Betty Susie. I really like that. So anyway, Betty Susie will end up somehow becoming Plastique. They did call her Plastique, of course, Cisco did give her name. He's kind of been giving pretty much every person's name besides the Flash. Of course, he is going to probably end up thinking that name up by himself, but of course Arrow sort of did hint it towards him, but probably next episode because the next episode is called The Flash is Born, so my guess is in the next episode, the city and probably himself will end up getting called the name The Flash. Thank God. The show's called The Flash. Eventually they're going to have to call him The Flash. So a little history on Plastique. Plastique is actually, normally in the comics, is an enemy to Firestorm. Now both General Eiling and Betty Susie, who is Plastique, are both villains in the comic books. Now Plastique is mostly a villain, but sometimes a hero, so she's kind of like on the Catwoman scale. She's but she's pretty much 80% villain, 20% good person. Now, she did end up, when she was a good person, marrying Captain Atom, who was another superhero, but she ended up breaking that off to, join the life of crime again. Now, that's just your little history of Plastique, and maybe we'll see something like that in the future, because we do know eventually we're going to be seeing Firestorm, and my guess is Plastique will come back, and Plastique and Firestorm will have a little rivalry. So if you're wondering my rating for this episode, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. That is a very good rating. I think this, like I said, this is probably my second favorite episode, and I think that this show, out of all the DC shows, Constantine, Gotham, Arrow, and The Flash, this has by far got to be my favorite. It's just so good. I feel like I'm reading a comic book, and that's like, if you want to satisfy a comic book reader, then watch The Flash. Like, seriously, like, the only way to satisfy a comic book reader, like, fully, is to grab a comic book and just, like, throw it at the TV and make them, like have sex or something, and then boom, it just happens. So that's pretty much the idea of this episode, but I want to talk about one thing first. In the beginning of the episode, we get to see they're at a bar, and the Flash is drinking, he's taking shots and everything, and what I found so funny is that they're really focusing on his powers and all the little problems that he has with it. And one problem they talk about a lot in this episode, and I say a lot by with such a small problem, they talk about it a lot, is that he can't get drunk. It's pretty funny. Like, the Flash cannot get drunk. Barry Allen is almost incapable of getting drunk because his metabolism is just so fast. It's actually pretty awesome. Now, this is not a spoiler, but at the end of the episode, Caitlin So ends up giving Barry a 500 proof shot. He's like, whoa, I'm pretty buzzed right now. And then he's like, and it's gone. And I found that really funny. I don't usually laugh at CW jokes, but this one I did laugh at. It was pretty damn funny, it's gone. I got that from South Park, but seriously, this episode was really good, but I want to get into the spoilers now, so if you already watched the episode, keep watching. If you haven't, leave. but then come back. Don't worry. I like it. Don't worry. So anyway, let's get into the spoilers. General Eiling actually has a relationship with Harrison Wells, and what I mean by that is 5 years ago, they worked on a project together, and the person they were working on, or I guess I should say, the thing they worked on would be Gorilla Grodd, and back then, his codename was just Grodd. It was a huge gorilla. We don't know too much about it, but that was the final ending scene. I really want to talk about that for a second because I have high hopes for Gorilla Grodd. I hope they make him like a season-long villain. I know they're probably going to pull the strings again and be like, oh, the explosion made him talk and made him superpowered and all that bull crap. But I really hope they were to bring in like the Gorilla City, the Secret City, the organization, the society. They're probably not going to do that though. There's high chances they won't do that because that does not connect with the vibe of what's been going on. You get it? Vibe? No, never mind. Anyway, that does not connect with the vibe of what's going on with the Flash. Pretty much any superpowered person gets their powers from the explosion. And I'm fine with that as long as they don't overdo it and they give a good explanation, because so far, every person that has powers has got an explanation. Like usually, when the explosion happened, that explosion had literally, like whatever you were doing at that point, might have caused you to have powers. For instance, the person who could turn into fog was in the presence of a gas chamber at the time, and Plastique was in the presence of, bombs. So it just makes sense, and I'm fine with that as long as it makes sense. So anyway, Betty Susie at the end of the episode actually ends up getting shot by General Eiling. She ends up dying. I don't think she's actually dead. They definitely wouldn't kill off this character. She's definitely still alive. Maybe it definitely makes sense. They could easily think of an explanation. For instance, like, oh, she exploded, but her body regenerated because that's what bombs do. I don't really know, but they'll definitely think of something because they're gonna bring her back because Plastique is definitely a bigger character in the DC universe than they made her in this episode, and she is an enemy to the Firestorm. So when Firestorm appears, Plastique should return. So anyway, Plastique ends up exploding. The Flash does two things in this episode. One, like I'm talking about right now, he has to end up running on the water to, throw Plastique in the water and run back, and he has to run, I think, 650 miles per hour, but he has to run faster back so the explosion doesn't hit him, and he accomplishes that goal. Another goal he accomplishes is in the beginning of the episode, he ends up flying up the side of a building like we saw in the promo. That was sick. I mean, a lot of the things we like to see Flash do is, run up the side of buildings, run on water, vibrate through things, go through time, and just insane, create sonic booms, which could possibly happen in the episode. I think Mach 1. I think in the next episode, he might reach 1,000 miles per hour, which is pretty cool. I mean, the Flash in the comics ends up running like 15 billion miles per hour, so he's slowly building up. Right now, he's at like 600 to 800 miles per hour. I mean, when he was running on water, he was definitely running one of his fastest, but in the next episode, they're definitely going to focus on his speed because the whole promo was about how fast he can run to hit the guy in the enemy in the next episode, which I don't know his name, but he can turn into steel, which is pretty damn awesome. So that's pretty much what happened in this episode. I mean, the last thing I can think of is Iris West is still going to do her blog because the only reason she wants to do it is because she wants the whole world to know that this thing, the streak, as she is calling it, she's probably going to end up calling it the Flash by next episode, is still alive. And I'm fine with the whole, the whole romance thing and everything, but I hope eventually she ends up knowing that Barry's the Flash. She's going to end up knowing. I just don't want them to overdo it. Like in Smallville, Lois Lane or Lana Lane, like whatever one you want to say, they took them like freaking forever to find out who Superman was or Clark Kent. It was just like, oh my god, that's just so annoying. Like seriously. So I don't want them to overdo it. Like just find a good time, possibly at the end of the season is good for me. You don't have to push it off for like 5 seasons. So anyway, I give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. I'm really excited for the next episode because he might break 1,000 miles per hour. We don't know yet. Anyway, I want to hear your review in the comment section down below. But if you have any comments or questions, please post them down below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. My name is Tommy Fasano from ZD Comics, and thank you for watching.
Ready, aim, fire.